Alright my broskies, Captain Auric back to bring you a guide for the Psyker and Warhammer 40k Darktide. I'll be going into detail on my items and talents as we go in depth on the playstyle for this build, giving you the tips on how to use this operative to bring forth the Emperor's fiery wrath. I'm hyped to bring you guys a budget build that will still let you be a total savage on the battlefield. You don't need best in slot items to be able to take on higher level and higher difficulty content in Darktide, and I'll prove it to you with this video where I'll go into Auric missions and still enable the team to succeed with my crowd control and team buffs. On my primary, I went with the Mark I Devil's Claw. I have a preference towards this weapon because of the swing sequence that it has, giving you 2 wide heavy swings in a row. Most importantly is this weapon's ability to parry, and that is what allows us to pick up different talents in our tree because we won't be focusing on blocking with this weapon, so we don't need to pick up a talent such as kinetic deflection. The Devil Claw's parry ability is deadly and will let you quickly dispatch enemies that get in your face when you're in a bad situation. Damage, finesse, and cleave is what you'll want for this weapon, and for blessings I have Devastating Strike on it, but for what I want on this build, I'd pick up Rampage and Shred. Keep in mind this is a budget build and it's meant to allow you to step into endgame without having to grind for the best in slot items. My secondary is the heavy Laspistol. The modifiers you want are just damage and ammo, since you won't be using this weapon as a staggering tool, and the situations that call for you to switch to your secondary are common but not frequent. For blessings, you'll want Raking Fire so that you can get increased damage for hitting all the large enemies in the back. The second blessing you'll want for it when you upgrade it is Dum Dum. Since the large enemies like Nurgles and Plague Ogrins will be running around close to you, this will let you do more damage with your Laspistol. On my Curios, I took 2 of them with plus health and toughness regen, and 1 with plus wound and damage reduction to mutants. You build a lot of aggro with this build, and let's face it, Auric is absolutely insane, so you'll be dying a lot, and having the ability to get resurrected more often is important since you'll pretty much make it possible to clear the mission with all the crowd control you bring to the table, which is why I took the plus to wound. Additionally, for perks, I'll be looking for damage reduction to mutants and gunners.
Alright brochachos, this is a support focused build, so not only are we going to be a crowd control machine, but we're also going to bring buffs to enhance your team's damage and survival. We're picking up Soul Stealer and Quietude for survival. Then we scoop up Battle Meditation so that we can quell some peril while holding enemies in place with our Smite. We'll pick up Perilous Combustion for the damage over time and move towards the middle of the tree to pick up Smite and both its upgrades. Pick up Psykinetics Aura for the team and Mind and Motion. My goal was to be highly mobile and always be in the middle of the pack, so Mind and Motion allowing you to move normally while quelling is critical for having good placement. Remember bros, I don't have friends, so I play with randoms, and they will leave your ass behind quickly if you don't keep up. We're picking up Kinetic Presence for damage aura. Unlucky for some, and 1 with the Warp for more survivability. We then pick up Telekine Shield and both its augments on the left. Then we make our way down the left of the tree to pick up our Keystones and its modifiers.
The playstyle around this build is to always be in movement and stay with your team. There are a boatload of buffs that you have, and your team will make great use of them if you're all together. Your main focus will be to crowd control, meaning that if you have one teammate down and surrounded by enemies, you're much better off smiting all the enemies around and letting a teammate pick them up, since your crowd control can make picking the downed ally a much safer endeavor. Auric missions will have challenging modifiers, and the frequency at which shit hits the fan is set to constant. So here are some tips that you can use to carry your team into the fray. Mark I Devil's Claw. This weapon is a total beast at defense. It shines with its parry ability that will one-shot unarmored enemies and even lets you tank crushers and monstrosities with well-timed counters. The Devil's Claw has an animation cancel with its parry, so it doesn't matter where you are within the swing of your attack. If you hit the parry button, it'll execute the parry and then still follow up with the attack that it had interrupted. You should be using this weapon when you're caught out of position to put in well-timed parries in between your heavy attacks to clear the enemies out in front of you. Heavy Laspistol. This weapon is so accurate and hits so damn hard. You should be switching to this weapon to engage enemies that are far away and aren't at a good distance to smite. When dealing with monstrosities, this will be your primary weapon of choice to safely put in damage from a distance, unless you're forced to tank it. In that case, then pull out your Devil's Claw. Smite. This is your bread and butter and what makes you essential to the mission. There is the regular Smite and then the empowered Smite. The regular Smite lets you get damage off quickly, whereas the empowered Smite, at the cost of about 1.2 seconds of charge time, you'll do more damage and crowd control more enemies. So in almost all situations, you should be charging your Smite. While crowd controlling enemies, if you release your Smite, it'll knock them back, and you should be using this to your advantage to reposition yourself for better angles to continue smiting, or so that you can quickly quell off some peril to reapply Smite again and keep the enemies locked down. You're so essential to the team that when playing with a lights out modifier, sometimes all that can be seen are just the enemies that you're smiting. Telekine Shield. For this particular playstyle, the Telekine Shield is a strategic tool that you'll employ to block out sniper and enemy fire from a distance, prevent mutants and poxbursters from getting to your team, and protect you from bad situations where you don't have any cover. You basically create the cover you need with your wall. Weaknesses. This build's weakness is damage. The Smite Psyker is a crowd control machine and lacks the ability to efficiently take out the enemies that it's crowd controlling. This means that if your team isn't attacking what you're smiting, you're going to end up with aggro from a lot of enemies, and it'll force you to have to reposition more often and also get caught out in surprise rear attacks from specialists. If you're doing Auric missions, the game is purposely throwing everything at you, so when you're going to engage a group of enemies with Smite, you'll want to mark your enemy so that the team knows what you're focused on. Additionally, don't use Smite from too far a distance. Wait until you're closer to the group of enemies so that you can lock them down faster without having to walk a long distance because you started smiting from far away. Also, not every situation calls for Smite. If you have a singular enemy in front of you, or two for that matter, just take out your Devil's Claw and chop them down. Alright my G's, let me know if you found this guide helpful in the comments. I also love hearing your suggestions and reading what you guys are currently doing on your builds. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content, broskies.